Welcome, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. So this is a public meeting to provide information on the Parkwood Area Lift Station Consolidation Project that will be starting construction soon. I'm going to turn it over to Murtado, who's our Spanish interpreter, for a second here.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And again, welcome everyone. I'm going to make an announcement in Spanish because, as you know, all of these meetings try to create equal access for the entire community. Bienvenidos, mi nombre es Murtado y quiero darles la bienvenida a esta sesión. Por favor, si se quieren conectar en el canal de español, vayan a la parte inferior de la pantalla y seleccionen el globito. En el globito seleccionen en español. Las instrucciones las acaba de poner Jolun en español para que ustedes las sigan si se conectaron desde una tableta o desde un dispositivo inteligente como un smartphone. Bueno, bienvenidos y espero que disfruten de su reunión. Thank you and enjoy the meeting. Back to you, Ryan.
All right, thank you. So for now, just so everyone's aware, we have everyone muted. When we get to the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll unmute everyone at that time. Things along here. So we'll start with introducing the project team we have in attendance. This is a project for the City of Durham Department of Water Management. So on the call, we have Wade Tong, who is the project manager for the city.
I'm Wade.
And Brown and Caldwell is the engineer hired by the city. I'm Ryan Sproul, the project manager leading our assistance for the city to facilitate the construction contract. And also on the call, we have Matt Green with Carolina Civil Works.
Can you hear me? Can you hear?
Matt Green is with Carolina Civil Works, who is the contractor performing the work for the city on this project. Moving on. So the agenda for this meeting is shown here. We will provide a brief overview of the project. We will summarize construction phase impacts. We will discuss next steps, give you information on how to stay informed, and discuss any questions you may have. As a reminder, we will go through the whole presentation before opening up for questions. If you think of questions during the presentation, you can post questions in the chat if you prefer. You can do this by following these instructions on the screen here. You click chat in the bottom toolbar, the chat window will open, and you can type a question and click enter to send. At the end of the presentation, we will review any questions in the chat and provide responses. Project overview. To give some background on this project, we will answer the following questions. What is the project? Why is it needed? What is the timeline? And what to expect during construction? The map here gives a general layout of the overall project, which includes lift station removal and replacement, new upstream gravity sewer, and an upsized sewer force main and gravity sewer along Sedgwick Road. Let's take a little closer look at the major project elements. So the work associated with the new regional lift station includes demolition of the existing Parkwood lift station and abandoned treatment structures and pond previously owned by the county, and construction of a new regional lift station, associated equipment, a new site layout, and an improved drive. The work associated with the new upstream gravity sewer includes removing from service and demolition of the existing Newhall lift station and Elmset lift station, constructing a new 8-inch gravity sewer that will run behind properties on Newhall, Pendleton, and Elmset, from these two lift station locations to the new regional lift station. And The work associated with the new sewer force main includes constructing a new 10-inch force main from the new regional lift station, which will go up to Sedgwick Road and run through one lane of Sedgwick Road up to Revere Road at its discharge point. In conjunction with that, we will be abandoning the existing 8-inch sewer force main that follows a similar alignment as the new force main. The work associated with the new downstream gravity sewer includes removing the existing 10-inch gravity sewer and associated manholes that currently run from Revere Road down to just east of Solitude Way, and replacing that existing sewer with a new 15-inch gravity sewer and manholes in the same alignment. So why is the Parkwood area lift station consolidation project needed? The city desires to replace the aging infrastructure in the project area and increase the service life and improve service reliability. In addition, the system is in need of a size increase for additional sewer capacity. We currently have a preliminary schedule for the project. The city is working on finalizing a few key easements, but what we show here is the current plan for the work to begin in June of 2024. The work will begin around the Parkwood lift station site with primary work related to the upstream gravity sewer shown here in red that will run through that, and the work will run through February of 2025. Next, the work will progress to the downstream gravity sewer shown in yellow, which is projected to be performed from February of 2025 to May of 2025. Then the force main work shown in blue is anticipated to occur in May and June of 2025. There will be varying levels of work and activity at the Parkwood lift station site shown in green, and that will start in June of 2024, including storage and deliveries as the project starts, and the actual work will begin at the appropriate time in the schedule with a projected completion of April of 2026. The contract duration for the project has been broken down into 2 phases. The procurement period began in January of this year and is ending in June of 2024, approximately 150 days for that phase of the work. That leaves approximately 700 days in the contract for completion of construction, which is planned for April of 2026. All right, so now we'll move on to construction phase impacts. Starting with impacts to residents, please note the following items. There will be intermittent impacts to residents, typically occurring during work days. The typical work hours are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. The contractor will be on site with heavy machinery for excavation and installation of the lift station, sewer piping, and manholes. Noise impacts are unavoidable, but will be minimized as much as possible. And sewer services will be tied into the new system. And we don't anticipate any extended service interruptions for any residents. There will also be traffic and pedestrian impacts along Sedgwick Road, including trucks and equipment hauling materials to and from the work site, a lane closure during installation along Sedgwick, including both a travel lane and a bike lane. Traffic control and or detour signage will be on site. Access to homes and side roads will be maintained at all times. And temporary steel plates, stone, or asphalt patch will be used until final restoration of driveways and streets. The photos here provide examples of equipment and the type of work you may see during construction. The first photo shows examples of equipment such as excavators and dump trucks that you may see similar to that. The lift station excavation will be done with similar shoring as shown in the middle picture. And the last photo shows an example of wood form similar to what will be used for concrete pours at the lift station site. Here are additional photos showing work in roadways and near and behind residences, similar to the work for this project. All three photos show some more examples of equipment that may be seen on site and what the temporary disturbance during the work may look like. And the last two photos show similar work around residences. And note that all work areas will be fully restored to existing conditions, with the exception of grass in the easements where trees previously may have existed, so the city can maintain their assets in the future. The photos here provide examples of traffic control you may see along Sedgwick Road and surrounding streets. This traffic control could include barriers, cones, and signs, as well as possibly flaggers. All right, and so we'll move on to next steps. So the next steps for construction include notifications distributed to property owners near the initial work areas, pre-construction video documenting existing conditions, the contractor mobilization to the site, which will include equipment and materials beginning to show up. Then when construction commences, you may see fresh paint on the ground designating the location of existing utilities, staking and flagging establishing the limits of construction, erosion control measures being installed, including construction entrances, silt fence, and orange tree protection fencing, initial clearing of the immediate work area, temporary bypass systems being set up, with excavation and installation of the gravity sewer starting soon after. So as mentioned on the last slide, property owner notifications will be distributed by the contractor. These will be provided to the initially impacted properties approximately 1 week prior to starting work. Other impacted owners will receive notices as the work progresses to the area near their properties. All right, so how to stay informed. I'll now turn it over to Joe Looney with the Department of Water Management.
Thanks, Ryan. I just put some information in the chat. So there are a couple different ways that you can stay informed about this project. One is to sign up for city news alerts on our website, and I've included that link in the chat. That's the durhamnc.gov list.aspx. And when you go to that site, you'll just scroll down, and then you will you'll see it'll say project updates, Parkwood area lift station consolidation project, and you'll just hit notify me about that, and you enter your email address, and then we'll be doing, I think we're going to be doing updates on this every 3 weeks on a regular basis. And then if there are any really big changes or important news or an important change to you, the residents of that area will do those as needed. And then you can also visit the website for this project, which is durhamnc.gov/5213. And that will have these meeting videos and we will keep that updated. And yes, the website hasn't been updated since March, since we're waiting on this meeting and to get the notice to proceed for construction, which is where we're at. So that's what I have for how to stay informed. And then if I could, are you ready to take questions, Ryan, or do you want to hold off for just a second?
Well, I think I think we have one question in the chat to answer first.
Yep.
And so I can attempt to address that first, and then we can take off mute for additional questions. Looks like we may have a couple others as well. So I'll run through what we have in the chat, and then we can open it up for taking people off mute. All right, so the first question from Chuck Davis: will job site management monitor noise levels, or will residents need to monitor and complain as if necessary? So I guess the simple answer is yes, and to both. But that during construction, the equipment is going to be loud. There's nothing they can do to quiet that. So during regular construction hours, you should anticipate those noise levels to be what they are from the equipment. The after hours things will be bypass pumps, essentially, then, or the power for those, the diesel engine or the diesel, I guess the diesel bypass pumps. But that those are appropriately muted, but that's the best they can do at that point, and we'll go from there. If there are any complaints, we'll have to see what we can do to help improve the situation. The next question is from Emily Bilsick, I believe, if I pronounced that correct. My understanding from the color-coded map and timelines is that the work will begin in the Newhall Village area. What is the first actions being taken? Is that tree removal? So tree removal will be one of the early activities, but not the very first thing. There will be erosion control set up and staking associated with making sure the limits are established. So the contractor subs that are removing trees and doing other clearing are staying within the limits of the work. So that'll be the first. That'll be the first activity. And then also you mentioned there will be traffic disruption on Sedgwick. Will there also be trucks parked on Newhall, Pendleton, and Donley? There will be some traffic that comes down Newhall, Pendleton, or well, Newhall likely, maybe a little bit on Pendleton, but there shouldn't be any parking there other than very temporary, as there's work area to move the vehicles into the work zones, the limits of construction. So there may be some temporary parking waiting to get access to get in, but that would be how that is limited. The next question: I have force main issues in front of my house and was told this fix would start in June, but looks like that won't be started till February. Is that correct? If your house, Ms. Mitchelson, is on Sedgwick, that's correct. So that's, if I know correctly where that is, let me go back on the slide real quick. Whoops, I lost my slides. Hold on a second. I'll go back to the schedule. So it looks like that is along the portion between Revere and Solitude Way. So yes, that would not start to be addressed in February unless the contractor ends up being ahead of schedule, but that's not anticipated at this time. Hopefully that answers that question there. And then Chuck brought up job spec, says that bypass pumps will be electric. So the lift station bypass pumps will be electric, or at least the main one. There'll have to be a backup in case we lose electric power. So that will be diesel, but that will only run if we lose electricity in the area. But all of the remote locations will be diesel powered because there's not an electrical supply to tie those to. And if I recall, Chuck, we did discuss that in the field when we were out there. I know it's been a couple of years since we met out there. But the main bypass that'll run for the majority of the project will be electric. Are there any homes that still need to move fences or other personal property from the work area? What are next steps for any conflicts there? To be honest, I'm not sure if any properties still need to move their fences. That would have been negotiated with the homeowners when we were doing the easements. If there's anything left in the way, then the contractor may be or will be prohibited from moving forward. So we just need to make sure that those that were agreed to in easement acquisition are addressed before they get out there. I don't know, Wade, if you have any updates on or any input on that, for example.
I do not. We'll know more if there are any conflicts once the staking gets done.
Yeah, that's a good point. So once they go out there and do that, they'll have a better idea if there's anything in their way, and we can address it then. All right, so I guess Ms. Michelson didn't get all the question. Why did the timeline change from June? I wasn't there with what was told to you, but the project has to move in a sort of a sequence of construction, and we have to work just move through the process as we have it. It's the best way to stage the work. So the upstream work feeding the lift station will be modified first, and then we move to the downstream piping from there. So that's how the project was structured. Then next question was, for each tree that is removed, are there any plans from the city to replace the trees? So the trees that are in the easements will not be replaced. Those are trees that are identified to remove. There are no other trees outside of the easements that will be removed. So the easements need to be open so the city can maintain their assets in the future. So there will be no trees replanted in those limits of construction. So next question, if in the red area on Elmset, how soon is the start? We still have a couple fence posts to move. So the start is in June. That's the plan right now. So depending on where you are on Elmset, it's only really guessing on when the contractor would need those to be out of the way, but the work in there will be from June to February. So the sooner you can have them moved, the less chance of it being an issue there. Next question is, what is the timeline goals for when tree removal will be completed for the red phase? It's a good question, but again, the clearing of that, it may go in some progression. So as the contractor's working in the alignment to put in the sewer, they have the option to clear the whole alignment right away or do portions at a time as they're progressing. I would imagine when the subcontractor's out there and everything is staked, they would move along and clear it as quickly as they can. But that may depend on different variables that the contractor will have to address. So the timeline is it'll all be removed by February of 2025, but likely sooner, likely towards the front of that timeline of the work. And next question, when removing debris and reestablishing drainage behind Candy's Court, can it be requested of job management to minimize damage to trees and removal of trees? So again, the trees being removed are within the limits, one, to access the infrastructure for maintenance in the future, and secondly, to access the pond and the treatment structures that need to be removed. So, any trees in the way of that will have to be removed. There could be some consideration to avoid some trees if they don't impede the contractor for the work, and I guess that would just have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis when we start out there. There's no real plans otherwise than to clear those areas to complete the work.
Hey, Ryan, I just wanted to, if you could just slow down just a little bit, just for Mercado.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So the next question, could you please repeat what you said in the presentation about most areas being restored to the original condition other than the easement areas or grass? Thank you. So, for example, the roadway in Sedgwick, when that is finished, it'll be repaved with asphalt. The lane stripes will be repainted, curb and gutter, driveways will be replaced, and replaced in kind. So depending on how wide your driveway was to start, it'll be put back the same way. And so that's an example of an area that's not in the easements, like the red line where that would be. So same thing around, there's a couple areas where I believe we have to do some plantings, like near the stream, for example, when we have stream crossings. So those are other examples. Same thing at Elmset and Newhall, when we remove those lift stations, paving, grass, curb, all of that will be repaired to be in kind. So behind the houses on Pendleton and Newhall, that is all easement for the city to maintain their sewer. So that will be grass. Next question. Is the easement the part of the city owns? And that is correct, yes. And yes, those trees would be removed and not replaced. And what is the easement? In other words, what part of our lawns? So all of the permanent easement that was given to, or that was done as part of the easement acquisition, that is all city, will be not city owned, but it'd be city used for the easement to be able to maintain their assets. So so that will be, as far as that, it'll all be grassed. That's how it'll be done. The next question was about mailboxes, how we get your mail. That is a good question, and that will have to be coordinated as we move along. Most mailboxes should not be impacted by the work, but there may be a few that will. And the contractor and the city are used to dealing with making sure that the mailman can get to properties and deliver the mail if they need to. So it'll be a work in progress, but we'll make sure that is handled appropriately so everyone will get their mail. And if mailboxes have to be taken down, they'll be taken down temporarily and reinstalled. And if any damages occur to those, they'll be repaired. Next question was, are you using the pipe burst method to replace sewer system? Assuming no with all the trenching. That's correct. So the pipe burst method is not going to work in this scenario. It was evaluated, but it's not going to work for the work or for what we have to do. So we have to open cut and replace the sewer as originally planned. The next question, how will you ensure you don't block driveways and line of sight, as Google Fiber was not a good situation? There will be coordination between the city's inspectors and the contractor to make sure that homeowners always have ability to get to and from their houses, whether it's in their driveway or the side roads that come into Sedgwick. So Generally, with the traffic control, there will be contractor will provide folks to make sure that you can get out safely when the time comes. Knowing that it's periodic, there may be a slight delay while they get in order to do that, but typically driveways will have short impacts to them, being a day or half a day, depending on the work at the time. So, but that will be looking for the right word, but it'll occasionally happen. So it'll just have to be a coordination issue or a coordination item that the contractor and city will deal with while they're out there. Who is the primary contact person, number, email, if there are urgent concerns or questions for residents to report, should any come up? Well, there will be, the three of us that are listed in the presentation, at the beginning of the presentation, are all folks that can be contacted. There will always be somebody on site with the contractor, and they can get in, so you can communicate with the project manager or somebody if they're close to you at the during the work. But otherwise, there should be also a city inspector on site, not all the time, but most of the time. And then when the lift station work is going on, we will also have a representative out there observing that work. But I would say the project managers for the three entities should be the ones contacted with questions. Next question: on my lawn from my drain opening to the curb is my easement. So I have 3 azalea trees there. Will they be taken down? We'll have to look to see exactly what site that is. But if they are in that easement agreement, then they may have to be. But there, again, something like those just depends on where they're placed in the easement. And so we can look at specific things like that. But I would assume if they're in there, they may have to come down at this point. Next question: what have been the biggest problems and complaints in prior projects of this nature? I think that's a good question, and I don't know if Wade, you would have anything that you could say to this, but it really varies from project to project. And it depends on what you mean by problems, if you mean problems for the contractor, for the city, or for residents. So, Wade, would you have any thoughts there?
I'll say some of the biggest complaints we have normally involves not really understanding the process. They come through and dig your yard up, and sometimes it's, they get it straightened up some in a week or two and get some temporary seed down. And then, a couple months later is when they're doing their final restoration. But in between, people are complaining a lot about, my yard doesn't look like it did. Well, it's because they're not done yet. They kind of want to get everything done so they can come do one good restoration sweep on the way through or something like that. It tends to work better than trying to do each individual yard. As you go by, you do a temporary restoration, you come back and make it look right and try to get everybody as happy as you can. That's been one of the major complaints that we deal with. A lot of the projects downtown, I project manage those, and people have very specific, I want my yard to look like this, but we have to treat everybody the same, and we try to do a good job. Other than that, it's some dust and noise. It is a construction process. We try to respect the work hours, and we do a really good job of that. And when we have problems we address them as they come up. If it's if somebody feels it's too loud, we try to make adjustments and maybe put some sound attenuation devices in, or trying to deflect the sound up instead of out. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. but those are the major ones we end up dealing with.
All right, thank you. The next was maybe mention that there will be somebody on site 24/7, but that is not correct. There will not be somebody on site 24/7. There will be the bypass systems will be monitored remotely or with an alarm system 24/7. So somebody will be on call from the contractor if an issue comes up with one of those, if they're alarmed or if they start alarming, to attend them. But there will only be somebody on site during construction hours. And as far as city and engineer reps, they will not be out there the full time. They will be out there at key moments and just to witness certain specific activities that the contractor performs, but be out there most of the time. A city inspector on the line work and a engineer representative on the lift station work. And I see that Joe dropped our contact info for you all in the slides, or from the slides in the chat here. All right, so the next question, how to access for heavy equipment, dump trucks, for example, cross by our houses, backyard, front yard, in Pendleton area. So the equipment will be in the easement, in the alignment shown here on the screen. So for back there, there is an access construction entrance at the bottom of Newhall, where they will, if they're coming in from the roadway, they will access through that construction entrance at that lift station, and they will work their way around. Same thing at Elmset, they will access at the entrance where the lift station currently is. There'll be a construction entrance there. And then the third access point will be at the Parkwood lift station drive where they come in. So those will be the only three areas where they will access the easement, but they will be working up and down that easement the whole time. So if the easement runs behind your house, then during construction hours, there may be equipment out there when they're working in that particular area. So question, I believe this is on Sedgwick again, when were you moving the gas line? As I understand, it needs to be moved. Yes, that's being coordinated with the gas company. Wade, I don't know if you have any word on when that's happening, but I haven't heard anything specific.
Their engineers are working on designing it, how to reroute it or move it out from the top of our sewer line. So I don't have a update on that yet. That's part of the reason that that section of the project got moved back a little bit, because we're waiting on a gas line.
It's a good point. So will the heavy equipment and trucks be parked on site over weekends and evenings on the easement behind houses and in the streets? So again, not in the streets, but there will be likely equipment stored on site. Trucks will not be stored on site. Usual trucks, maybe there's a specialty truck that they might use just at the work site, but heavy equipment will likely stay on site once it's delivered. And where it's parked will just really depend on where the contractor is working at the time. But again, they'll only be within the limits of construction or the easements for that. Pause for a second there. Last question currently in the chat is, for those of us working from home, how are you going to ensure there's not interruption to internet access from the various companies? So as we've already mentioned, that the fiber and utilities are being relocated to be out of our work areas. So those are being moved, and if there's anything that continues to cross, will be flagged and addressed. So there are definitely pains going through making sure that everything is going to be avoided, so there isn't potential for damaging something. Now, if the fiber company or the communications company missed something and we're not aware of it and the contractor hits it, there is a risk that it could be damaged. But that's why we go through these steps with the private utilities to make sure that all of their lines are identified, so we can have them appropriately moved and identified so we can avoid them. Hope that answers that. All right. Are there any further questions?
I think Tracy had one more right after her interruption to internet access. There's one about blocking easements.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And Ryan, to answer that, DOT does not allow us to generally park equipment within the easement unless it's on the back edge of it. Contractor we're using does a really good job of making sure he's adhering to NCDOT requirements.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was focused more on stuff in the easement and not necessarily on the.
Wait.
But-
This
Okay, so one more question came in. What will be the size of the trench for the water line from Candy's Court to the lift station? Well, it's a 2-inch line. So that really, and I don't, it won't be really deep, but I'm guessing, I don't know if Matt or Wade could chime in on what you would anticipate for putting in a 2-inch line. But I would go ahead.
I was trying to give Matt an opportunity to answer that. I'm assuming he would use a smaller bucket, probably an 18 or 24-inch trench.
Right, yeah, and it would be the width of the bucket.
Yeah.
That's what I was just about to say. So, so they would limit it to that, and it will only be a few feet deep as well. So, and that, so yeah, I guess that gives you a pretty good idea of what you'll see there. All right, I think I've touched on all of the questions. It looks like that was the last one we just talked about. Oh, here's another one. I understand the first phase, the red, is anticipated to end in February. If there are delays, how will that be communicated? So, so the plan is we will have, Joe, I'm trying to remember. I think we said monthly updates. I think that's right.
Yeah, it'll be I think I said 3 weeks, but every month.
Okay. So, yeah, every 3 weeks or a month, we will update the website with schedule updates and other key information once the construction gets started. So, assuming that we start in the next month, there may not be much to add, but we'll make sure that as things get going, that we update that to provide those updates.
I would add that those will be news alerts, so those will go out as an email, but they'll also be available to read on the project website.
And I think we answered that part about the monthly updates, right? Okay. All right, any further questions?
can I ask one?
You're breaking up a little bit, but
Can you hear me?
you're breaking up.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. You can't hear me.
Not very well. Hear bits and pieces. Joe, did you add the project website to the chat?
Yes, I did. I can add it again when we're all done. Tracy, I would say just go ahead and ask your question and we'll see if we can get it.
I just wanted to say that it has been blocked multiple projects. So I just want to make sure that you all are going to take this one.
I'm sorry, it's just breaking up. We only caught bits and pieces.
I think she's trying to make sure that we ensure that driveways and sightlines aren't blocked. I think that's what she was trying to stress.
Okay. One other question on the Sedgwick work. So the work on Sedgwick from Revere to Audubon will be on the south side of Sedgwick, and that is correct. So the force main will be in these, it'd be in the eastbound lane or the south lane, and then when we start the gravity sewer at Revere down to past Solitude Way, that is going to be in the right of way on the south side of the road.
A totally tangential suggestion, if I may.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't know if you were hearing me. The soils down here are terrible and very unstable, and the roads typically collapse every 5-10 years. Wondered if there'd be an opportunity to save some, for the city to save some money, perhaps to coordinate with the contractor, and where there's opportunities to do repaving beyond just job site repair, take advantage of the equipment and everything being there.
Well, I can say that the contractor has a specific contract with the city to do the work that is a part of the project. But Wade, is there anything you would want to add to that?
Yeah, it would be a change order, but again, just, perhaps an opportunity.
And Chuck, I appreciate that foresight, but the issue with this, you have two different municipalities. One's the state and one's the city. The state owns the street. We have to repair anything we damage, and that comes out of the city of Durham's taxpayer fund, where the state owns Sedgwick Road. And if we repave that with city funds, we have to answer that to an audit.
I understand.
Okay. And it looks like Tracy, you added your request, so that's noted, and we will make sure that that everyone is conscious of that as they're working along there. And that is a goal while we're working in the roadway. And then I think you also asked where will the force main end, and the force main ends at Revere Road. That's the line in blue here. So it ends, well, I should say it ends just east of Revere Road, where our first manhole will go for the downstream sewer.
And Ryan,
Yeah.
that's also, there's a second force main that belongs to the county, and that's what that's what impacts Miss Michelson, sorry.
Right. Okay.
Causes some of her problems, and that's the one that I asked you to look at so we could change the discharge point.
Okay.
We could calm some of that water down as it goes down. Yep.
And that sounds like that should be doable. It's
Agreed.
and that is there's a county force main we had. The plan was just to retie it into its existing location, but we're looking at adding it moving it up, and I can't remember if it's 1 manhole or 2 manholes upstream. But it would be the second manhole that we would install from in the new alignment instead of, I think it may be this one down here, our 4th manhole, if I remember right. Next question was again about what about sidewalks on Sedgwick? So any sidewalk that is in the limits that will have to be disturbed will be removed temporarily while the work's performed and then replaced. If it's not going to be impacted by the work, then whether it's in the limits or not, it may or may not be removed. It just depends on the where the work occurs. Joe added the project website again for folks' reference. So the county force main, I guess it's there. That's the one Wade was just referring to, and it will be, yeah, that will be addressed as part of the work for the yellow. So the original design plan was just to tie it in as we put in the new line. However, if we're moving it upstream, then that connection will be made a little bit sooner in that schedule, or a little bit, I'm sorry, well, there'll be some coordination we'll have to have on that. So I won't say it'll be sooner, it'll be just installed farther upstream. So next question was, will this permanently stop the sewer odor we have dealt with for a year on Sedgwick? Or for years, sorry. I can't answer that. I would say, I can't say that would alleviate those issues. There are steps being taken to improve flows and things like that, but that is not I guess, something that I could say for certain that would improve. Typically it does, at least in the short term, but as things age again, that may change. Wade, I don't know if you have any input on that one.
Well, our lift station is designed and it has odor control. We generally add a chemical. We add a chemical to it in order to stop the odors. Unfortunately, the county also has a force main, and I cannot speak to what they do for odor control.
Yes, there will be the sidewalks that are removed there'll be new sidewalk there. There's no, are you saying you want new sidewalks? There's no plans to put new sidewalks if there's not a sidewalk there. That will answer your question. The county's force main runs along Sedgwick Road, in a similar alignment to what our force main does. And then it runs further downstream and ties into the force main closer to your house, Ms. Mitchelson.
Actually in her front yard, Ryan.
Yes. So it runs the full length of Sedgwick. It cuts through the Parkwood lift station property, and it runs down to the county lift stations that are not shown on our map here. So I guess your question, Ms. Mitchelson, is, will someone contact me if this is going to fix my issue and need to work with the county? I was not aware there were 2. So the proposed change to move this upstream is the proposed fix. that is what the county suggested as a solution. Wade, that's correct, right? That's what they suggested, was to move it upstream, right?
Actually, they had no suggestion. They
Okay.
didn't know what to do. We're making this suggestion, hoping it will help calm the water down and flow better and not stir it up and have the turbulence it has to release all the gases.
Okay. If we want new sidewalks, do we work through the county and the state? As far as sidewalks put in a state right of way, Wade, I assume that's a state decision? Or is that
Not necessarily. They're in city limits. They can petition Public Works. And I believe they have Public Works and Transportation with the city of Durham. And I believe they have a program where you can petition to get sidewalks in, especially if it's in a school route or something like that for a safe neighborhood. Okay.
And currently the last question, you're asking what I was going to close the presentation with. So the recording will be accessible on the project website once it's fully processed and uploaded. So probably once the city's able to do that, it'll be posted the next day or two. And Joe may have said something about that in here. It looks like he has. So he says it'll be posted tomorrow. All right. Are there any other questions? All right. With that, I think we are done. I'm just making sure I don't have any other notes to point out to you all. So we touched on the recording. And as we've discussed, feel free to reach out to any of us listed in the presentation or on the project website if you've got questions as the project progresses. And thank you for your time and your input. So we will, as we discussed and answered questions, all of these things will be considered as we move along. And obviously, if you have a concern, feel free to raise it and we'll address it then. So I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and thanks for your time.